Dear students, in this module, it is aimed to understand the necessary aspects related to ethical issues in research. To this end, the learning objectives are meaning and importance of ethics in social science research, ethics related to the respondents, researcher and the funding agency, ethical guidelines for social science research in health, the ethics committee and its role. First, we will focus on ethics in research, its meaning and importance. Ethics are some sort of rules. Ethics are some sort of rules, written or unwritten, and that governs our expectations of our own and others' behavior. They used to be set out how we expect others to behave and why. While there is broad agreement on some ethical values, for example, that murder is bad, there is also wide variation on how exactly these values should be interpreted in practice. Likewise, research ethics are the set of ethics that govern how scientific and other research is performed at research institutions such as universities and how it is disseminated. When most people think of research ethics, they think about issues that arise when research involves humans or animal subjects. While these issues are indeed a key part of research ethics, there are also wider issues about standards of conduct. Ethics, in other words, can be said as codes of conduct. These include the importance of publishing findings in a transparent way, not plagiarizing others' work, and not falsifying work. However, in the present module, an attempt is made to discuss about the ethical issues in planning and carrying out social science research. Research ethics are important for a number of reasons. For instance, they promote the aims of research such as expanding knowledge. They support the values required for collaborative work such as mutual respect and fairness. They mean that researchers can be held accountable for their actions. Many researchers are supported by public money, and thereby it is necessary to ensure that money is spent appropriately. They ensure that the public can trust research. For people to support and fund research, they have to be confident in it. They support important social and moral values such as the principle of doing no harm to others. Now, coming to the ethics, three principal stakeholders are involved. While carrying out social science research, ethics or codes of conduct have to be taken care in relation to the main stakeholders such as the research participants like respondents, the researcher and the funding agency. The ethics issue first we will discuss from the research participant side. In social science research, the researcher largely deals with several types of respondents, largely human beings, depending upon the research problems, topics to be studied. In fact, these are the persons who will be mainly affected or benefited by the findings of the research carried out by the researchers. These type of stakeholders may be of different types. For example, in the social sciences, they may be individuals of different age groups, gender wise, marital status wise, old age participants, etc. Or groups like religious, caste groups, self-help groups, etc. And communities like rural, urban, school or colleges, etc. In health and family welfare research, the research participants may be women seeking or availing maternal and child health and family planning services, adolescents and youth, family planning workers, etc. In all these regard, they provide information to the researchers to gain understanding of a phenomenon, situation, issue, etc. Thus, depending upon the research topic, the type and composition of research participants will vary. Now, we will discuss upon the ethical issues from researchers' perspective. Researchers constitute the other major category of stakeholders. All those persons who are collecting information for research purpose from the research participants or at times from secondary sources will fall in this category. The researchers may be from different disciplines within the broad spectrum of not only social sciences, but also from medicine, public health, sciences, etc. They will collect such information for understanding the phenomenon, consolidate the same and develop their professional knowledge adhering to certain accepted research ethics. They are called codes of conduct otherwise. Thirdly, the funding agencies. The most of the social science research used to fund by some funding organizations, maybe national level at international level, which falls under the third category of stakeholders in research. These agencies may be business organizations or trusts, government organizations such as UGC, ICSSR, ICMR, etc. At times voluntary organizations and research bodies and academic institutions. Mostly the funds will be public in nature, besides from philanthropists, businessmen under CSR, etc. Each of these funding agencies also will specify some ethical issues related to the research studies for which funding is provided. Now, we will focus upon the ethical issues related to research participants. They are mostly in terms of voluntary participation, informed consent, the possibility of harm to risk to the participants, maintaining confidentiality and anonymity, respect for privacy, seeking and disclosing information, providing incentives, etc. Now, first we will discuss about the voluntary participation. According to this principle, the participants, that is the respondents of any research, are not to be pressurized or forced to participate in research. They have to be explained the importance of the research and how significant is their participation or providing the needed information for the research theme selected by the researchers. Voluntary participation is most relevant where researchers had previously relied on quote captive audiences for their subjects like prisons, working establishments, colleges and universities, etc. The second ethical issue related to research participants is informed consent. With voluntary participation, it is very much essential for the researchers to get informed consent of the respondents. This means the participants have to be informed in the beginning of the interview or data collection about the information going to be collected, so as to express their willingness to provide the same. Essentially, this means that prospective research participants must be fully informed about the procedures and risks involved in research and must give their consent to participate. Through this, the participants have to be given liberty to participate and also can withdraw from participation from the research if they didn't like some of the questions raised or framed in the tool of data collection. Free and informed consent needs to incorporate an introduction to the study and its purpose, as well as an explanation about the selection of the research subjects and the procedures that will be followed. In addition, the subjects, that is respondents, need to know any expected benefits either to the subject or to science by giving new knowledge. In the case of human beings, the risk may be physical, social, economical and psychological in nature. If the researcher expects any such risks are likely to happen to respondents, the researchers need to take appropriate steps to prove it. The third ethical issue related to researchers is the possibility of harm or risk to the participants. The participants, that is the respondents, also should be informed about the possible harm or risk to them, either directly or indirectly, that are likely to arise due to their participation in the research and providing information related to the topic of research. From the researcher's side, it is essential to describe any physical harm or discomfort and any threat to dignity of the respondents, as well as how they, that is the respondents, will be comprehend in that case. In the case of human beings, the risk may be physical, social, economic and psychological in nature. If the researcher expects any such risks are likely to happen to respondents, the researcher needs to take appropriate steps to prevent it. The fourth ethical issue related to the respondents is maintaining confidentiality and anonymity. Anonymity and confidentiality are the inherent rights of all those who are participating in research. The researchers have to give assurance for anonymity of the respondents if desired so, and one can also has to check with them in case of need whether their name can be identified. This is more in the case of those research deals with stigmatized, sensitive or personal issues and information. If there is any possibility of the breach of confidentiality and anonymity anticipated and addressed, the participants have to be explained about the same, and if possible, better to get permission at that level, it can be done. Researchers also should maintain appropriate anonymity and confidentiality of information in creating, storing, accessing, transferring and disposing of records under their control, whether these are written, automated or in any other medium. Another major ethical issues related to respondents is respect to privacy. Research by and large has to be carried out with the participants by providing privacy to them. Privacy can be said as the freedom of an individual to determine the time, extent and general circumstances under which the respondents feel comfortable to share private information with or withheld from others. As most of the social research, there is a need for respondents to share their beliefs, attitudes, opinions and at times personal records. Firstly, the researchers have to suggest them to provide the same in privacy and according to the convenience of the respondents. Appropriate methods should be devised to ensure privacy at the time of data collection. These methods are also essential to ensure the validity of data. While deciding on what information should be regarded as private or confidential, the perspective of the participants on the matter should also be given adequate importance. Coming to the next ethical issues from the respondent side is the seeking and disclosing information. Social science research to a large extent focus on topics of personal as well as sensitive in nature. While seeking such information, the respondents have to be given assurance that they have every right to disclose the same according to their wish. However, at the same time, they have to be explained clearly under what circumstances they are collecting such sort of information, besides how such information is going to be useful for the existing body of knowledge and are helpful to modify or rectify certain phenomena in near future for the benefit of the respondents alike. The next ethical issue related to the researchers respondent side is providing incentive. Generally, it is unethical to provide incentives of any type to the research participants, that is respondents. However, for certain topics of research, some research organizations and or researchers have started to provide some incentives either in cash, gifts or refreshments, etc., so as to encourage them to give needed personal and at times crucial information needed for the research. In fact, some respondents in the recent past have started to ask what is the benefit they are going to get by providing the needed information for the research by responding for about an hour or more, and some others have started to demand small amounts of money to compensate partially their work or work time. These include special groups like persons affected with HIV/AIDS, MSM, transgenders, FWs, etc. For conducting in-depth interviews by selected a few young men as case studies working in the hosiery establishments in a city in Tamil Nadu during 2001, I have paid ₹100 per person for 10 boys only to compensate their wage for about 2 to 3 hours or half day. It has also become most common to provide some refreshments and or small gifts when the respondents, that is generally lesser in number, take part in focus group discussions. From the researcher's side, the ethical issues mostly related to honesty and integrity, avoiding bias or maintaining objectivity, confidentiality, carefulness, openness. Researchers should use appropriate research methodology and correct reporting, and finally appropriate use of information. We will discuss a few words about all these. Firstly, we will discuss about the honesty and integrity of the researchers. Researchers should report their research honestly, and that applies to the methods also. Their data, results and whatever they have previously published, any of it, etc. They should not make up any data, including extrapolating unnecessarily from some of their results or do anything which could be construed as trying to mislead anyone. It is better to undersell than over exaggerate your findings. When working with others, they should always keep some clear cut agreements and act sincerely according to the same. Second, from the researcher's side, ethics is avoiding bias or maintaining objectivity. Researchers have to collect information from the respondents without any bias by following the scientific objectivity in research. The researchers should not interpret the information according to their education and professional qualifications and experience, and also should not alter the same. Rather, they have to collect the information as it is provided by the respondents. Researchers also should not show bias in reporting the findings with the alteration or suitable to the needs of the sponsored organizations. Third ethical issues from the research side is the confidentiality. Researchers have to maintain confidentiality by not sharing the data other than the stakeholders or sponsors. As stated earlier, they should respect the respondents' confidentiality and anonymity till the end of the study and publishing the same. The data and records related to the research also should be kept in confidential till the end of the research process. Ethical issues from the researcher's side is carefulness. Researchers have to take care in carrying out their research to avoid careless mistakes. They should also review their work carefully and critically to ensure that their results are credible. It is also important to keep full records of their research for verification, if any. Fifth ethical issues from research side is openness. Researchers also should possess the characteristics of always be prepared to share their data and results along with any new tools that you have developed when they publish their findings, as this helps for further knowledge and advancement of science. The next ethical issue from research side is researchers should use appropriate research methodology. Like researchers have an obligation to use appropriate research methodology within their knowledge base in conducting any study. Generally, it is unethical to use deliberately a method or procedure they know to be appropriate, such as selecting a highly biased sample, selecting the study area according to their convenience, not properly designed instrument, doing wrong analysis by the application of inappropriate statistics, etc. The next ethical issue from the researcher side is correct reporting. Correct and unbiased reporting of the findings of the research is an important characteristic of ethical practice in research. The researchers should not give or publish the findings in a way that changes or supports their own or someone else's interest, that is mostly supporting or satisfying the funding agencies, is unethical. The next ethical issue is appropriate use of information. Researchers have to use the information collected from the participants in an appropriate manner so as to see that it will not adversely affect the interest of the participants. If the researchers expect that reporting the information objectively will affect the interest of the participants, it is ethical that they should inform the participants while collecting the such information so as to take the decision by them to participate or not in the research. The researchers also should include and practice sensitivity and respect the culture and other aspects of the group or community studied while reporting the findings. Some of the ethical issues related to sponsoring organizations are restrictions imposed by sponsoring organization, and the second one is the misuse of information. Firstly, restrictions imposed by sponsoring organization. Different sponsoring organizations specify different direct and indirect controls in carrying out research based on their research interest. For example, some may select methodology such as sampling households, instruments to data collection, follow certain specific procedures during data collection, etc., transferring data to the organizations, limitations in use of data, prohibiting the publication of findings of the research sponsored by them, etc. At times, such restrictions may stand in the way of obtaining and disseminating accurate information. Strictly speaking, both the imposition and acceptance of these controls and restrictions are unethical, as they constitute interference and could amount the sponsoring organization tailoring research findings to meet its vested interests. However, at times the researchers should abide such ethical guidelines or regulations so as to get funding smoothly. The second ethical issue from sponsoring organization side is the misuse of information. Generally, sponsoring agencies will make use of the data for good cause and help the participants at large, but sometimes the agencies, mostly in the case of private organizations, may use such data for promoting management's agenda, though the findings of the research do not support their point of view, which is unethical. However, from the researcher's side, it is mostly difficult or even impossible to prevent such happenings, since it is the general practice that the data will be handed over to the agencies after the research study is completed. Ethical guidelines for social science research in health. Till recently, in Indian context, there are no specific ethical guidelines for pursuing research in social sciences. Hence, steps have been taken in a modest way by some researchers, 10 in number, who have formed as a committee under the coordinatorship of Amar Jesani and Tejal Barai, and brought out a concise document on ethical guidelines in social science research in health. These guidelines are followed as benchmark by most of the ethics committees formed at different colleges and universities and research institutes, and framed their own or modified such guidelines at the concerned levels. The next important thing we would like to understand is about the ethics committee and its role. In the recent past, most universities have formed an ethics committee. This committee will scrutinize all research proposals both by the faculty as well as by the research scholars doing their MPhil and PhD levels, to ensure that they do not raise any ethical issues. The major role of the ethics committee is to judge what the researchers are doing is appropriate and proportionate to their research aims. The committee will go through the aspects like the objectives of the research proposal, usefulness of the research, expected benefits to the participants or community, any anticipated risks or adverse effects to the participants as well as to the researcher, and also effects taken to minimize the risks if any, detailed plan for the confidentiality of the data or records, wage compensation if any proposed, tool for data collection is possible, procedure to be followed to get informed written consent, etc. There is likely to be a standard form to complete the ethical approval including all these aspects. If a research proposal raises ethical issues, the committee will ask the researcher to look again at the issue and consider whether they could do differently. Sometimes the committee may also suggest alternative methods that they think are more suitable for the target group or additional precautions that one should take. Most of the funding agencies also insist that the research proposals have to be scrutinized by the ethics committee of the concerned colleges or universities and research institutes and get the clearance from it before submitting for funding or research grant. In sum, in this module, we have discussed at length about various aspects related to ethical issues in research, such as ethics related to the respondents, researchers and sponsoring agency, besides ethical guidelines for social sciences in health and the ethics committee and its role. Hope by understanding these ethical issues, one can able to pursue their research in population studies following the ethical guidelines in an effective manner. Thank you.